There's a difference.
All right, we got that on tape.
Oh,
Now
really?
let's begin.
Hold on.
Perek Vav Halacha Dalet. We are here on this Mishnah. Shtei Amorim. This is a very basic halacha in shikha. Shtei Amorim are shikha, shlosha edom shikha. 3 Amorim are shikha, 2 Amorim are shikha. If you forget two sheaves behind it, shikha. Shlosha, if you leave 3 behind, edom shikha. Shnei tzibur zaysim. Similarly, 2 piles of olives, v'charuvim or carobs, shikha, are shikha, shlosha, edom shikha. 3 are not. Shnei utzanei pishon, 2 bundles of flax, shikha, v'shlosha edom shikha. If you forgot 3, it's not shikha. No, it's 3 is a significant amount. Therefore, if you forget it, we say it's not considered to be bona fide shikha. Shnei grogros, perets. If you leave 2 grapes, it's peret. Shlosha, 3 grapes, eno peret. And shnei shibolim, if you 2 stalks of grain fall from your hand, that's leket. Ushlosha, if 3 stalks fall from your hand, eno leket. K'divrei Beis Hillel. Va'kulam, in all these cases, Beishamrim shlosha lanim arba lebal bais. They ratchet it up by 1. Every time you have 3, it belongs to the ani. When it's 4, the Baal Bais gets to retain it. Okay? So according to Beis Hillel, the dividing line is between 2 and 3. According to Beis Shammai, the dividing line is between 3 and 4.
What's the logic that it belongs to Baal Bais?
To Gezeres Kasav, we'll learn it in the Gemara. Okay? Rabbi Bun, Rabbi Chia, B'Shem Rabbi Yechon says, Ason kamin gan. Lo Amar. If it's made that, if it's Lo Amar Elutziburim. If it's like a gamma, like the Greek letter gamma, which is customarily like a resh, looks like a resh according to most of our Jewish sources, even though I don't know if that squares away with reality. So if it's like a gamma, that's not considered to be a pile of 3. Ela tzivurin has to dafka be a pile of 3. It's an interesting thing. So I have 1 here, and 1 there in the shape of this resh or L. So that's not considered to be 3, and it doesn't save them. They have to be all 3, 1 on top of each other to constitute a pile. Otherwise, they are not saved. Otherwise, they're shikha. Every halach in the Mishnah, right? It has to be that they are not in a pattern, but rather in a pile. There's a question about whether to read this as a statement or as a question. Is this a statement that he's making, or is it a question that he's asking? And the question is not resolved. They're both versions, okay? So essentially he's saying that there's a possibility, at least, that it has to dafka be tzfurim and not kimin gam. Says Gemara, Hazeisim lo. We said that if it's olives, then not. We said that if you take a look at that Mishnah, it says Shnei Tzivurei Zeisim, 2 clusters of olives, but not 2 specific olives. Later in the Mishnah we mentioned 2 specific grapes, right? Here we don't mention 2 olives, but rather 2 groups of olives. What's the difference between the grapes and the olives? So it says ma bein zeisim, ma bein tzvur and ma bein zeisim. Sorry, what's the difference between piles of olives and individual olives? So the truth is, says the Gemara, tziburin is kamar malacha. We said already previously that shikha is defined as when you're taking from the time you made bundles to the time that you're taking it into your silo, into your barn, into your main warehouse. So therefore, by olives, you don't take individual olives into your warehouse, right? What you do is you take bunches of olives. So therefore the shikha is on the piles or the baskets or the bunches of olives. On that stage, if you forget 2 of those bunches out in the field, then that's going to be shikha. 3 is not shikha. We're not talking about individual olives. Says the Gemara again, ma bein zeisim l'tzivurim, ma bein tzvurim, ma bein zeisim. Tzivurim gemar malach. Tzivurim is complete. Now you're going to bring it into the barn. Zeisim and gemar malach, you're not prepared to bring it to the barn yet. Rabbi Yeshua said, Romeis Haisi Zeisim, which means I was harvesting olives with Rabbi Chia Godo with Rabbi Chia the Great. Finally, he said to me, Kozai Shatz At Yochel Livshot Yodcha Velitlo. Anytime you can extend your hand and get an olive, In other words, you can stretch back and get it if you stretch back in that direction. Ain't no shicha, it's not shicha. Rabbi Yochanan argues. Says, Mikav and Shavar love shachol, once you passed over and forgot it, Harei shicha, that's it, there's no going back. Even if you can extend your hand back and it's still within reach, it's too late.
We had this previously
with stalks of grain. Yes. Rabbi Lezer B'Shem Rechia Rabba says, Chatzi eshkol peret. A half a cluster of grapes, if you forget on the tree it's peret, you can't go back and take it. Says the Gemara Tani Rabbi Chia Chatzi eshkol, either half a cluster or eshkol sholim, a whole cluster. Now the Gemara is peret. Now the Gemara asks the obvious question, what did we learn in our Mishnah that even shnei gargarim, even 2 grapes are considered to be peret? Grapes, individual grapes, not clusters. We spoke about grapes being peret, not clusters. So it says more an answer which nobody understands. Ready? It says Rabbi Yami, we're talking about a case where you were harvesting and leaving them under the tree. It's very difficult to understand exactly what he means by this. In fact, the Gra just takes it out, and he changes the whole Gemara radically. But what seems that the pshat is that if you're putting grapes underneath your tree separately, as opposed to in a bundle. Now let me make not a bundle, in a basket. Then I fine you. Then I say, no matter how many grapes roll away, they're all peret. You got to give them all up to the Yadi, even up to a half a cluster, even up to a cluster. However, if you did it the right way, if you put the grapes in a basket, then I say, I don't find you, and if 2 grapes roll out of the basket, it is peret, but if 3 grapes roll out of the basket, it's not peret. So it's an interesting thing. You're supposed to put your grapes into a basket when you harvest them. Because if you don't put your grapes in the basket, you're cheating zanim. Because then, theoretically, you could say, oh, none of this was shikha, nothing would roll the ray of shikha. I put my grapes on the ground, I'm not forgetting anything. So therefore, we find if you put your grapes directly down on the ground, no matter how many grapes roll away, even up to half a cluster, a whole cluster, it's all considered to be shikha. However, if you put your grapes in a basket the way you're supposed to, so we can distinguish between the grapes which roll out and the grapes that stayed in the basket, in that case I say, okay, if 2 rolled away, that's shikha. If 3 rolled away, it's not shikha. Okay, so in essence, this eshkol, the chatzi eshkol, is a fine which we imposed upon you if you didn't put your grapes into a basket. Okay? Says more further, but Rabbi Ami Omer, I just did that. Hayu asuyin kimin snifin. They were made like little branches. So the Pnei Moshe says it's going on the hutzne pishton, on the flax. Why it's called hutzne? That hutzne means like snifin. They're like little branches. But here he has a different shot here in the Kavanaki. He says, I forgot, but let me find it quickly. He says that he says that if they were all clustered, if there were a whole bunch of clusters together, right, which, not a whole bunch of clusters, a whole bunch of grapes which were made together like branches. A snif in Hebrew is a branch, right? So let's say if they're all branched together, if they're all connected, the grapes, then that's considered to be significant, and therefore it's not considered to be shikha, right? In other words, let's say you have 3 grapes on a branch, so then in that case, even though it's one branch, since there are many grapes on the branch, it's not considered to be shikha, you can go back and get it. Which means Anim really essentially only get specific grapes. They never really ever get branches, right? They only get individual grapes, unless there are 2 grapes, but they don't get 3 grapes.
It's tied up like the Ministry of Tourism logo.
What?
The Ministry of Tourism logo in Israel, they have 2 people.
2 people, yeah.
Bringing
Yeah.
So that for sure is tied up.
Those are tied together. Yeah, sure. That's a bundle. Yeah. Well, there in that case, there's I'm not sure what the halacha is by a vineyard. That really falls into the parameter of if where they forget one of those, it's really shikha. Peret is the equivalent, of leaving something attached to the tree, generally speaking, or isolated grapes falling out. The Gemara never discusses, and I think there's no concept of forgetting a basket of grapes out in the field. We have a concept for getting tzvurei zaysim, but I don't know if there's a concept for forgetting bundles of grapes. In other words, grapes are so choshev that the Torah never, if you forgot a bundle or a basket of grapes, I don't see it discussed anywhere that should be considered something which you have to leave out for the aniyim to take. So perhaps you don't have to. I'm just hypothesizing. I might be proved wrong sometime later, but I'm hypothesizing at the moment. Says the Gemara, Vushia chotcham b'shaveh. This again is something which is hard to understand. What does chotcham b'shaveh mean? So let's see what the Bnei Moshe says. I don't know. I'm not sure what to even do with this line. Vushia chotcham b'shaveh. He says that it means that I'm forgetting the Bnei Moshe. The Kavanaki says that it's talking about that they have to be cut as one and fall as one. So then, if they cut as one and fall as one, so then all are considered. They're considered to be three. In other words, all of the grapes on that branch are joined together, and they're not considered to be peret. But if one of them is cut off before the other two, then they're considered to be peret, and they go to the aniyim. So I'm not sure. It's hard for me to even understand the scenario. But seems to be what he's saying is that if you had a branch that started off with three, so when it falls with three intact, so then I can say it's not peret. But if one of them falls up before the other two, or vice versa, so then it's considered to be peret, and you must leave that which remained. And if you didn't actually pick it up, if it fell out of your hand, it's left for that which left for the aniyim to come and take it. All right. It's somewhat difficult. Says more in any event. Rabbi Avun said, "Ta'amai Beis Shammai." What's the logic Beis Shammai? Who said you need 4 in order for the Baal Bayis to retain ownership? Because it says Lager, Leyasom, Valmona, yeah. So that means that if there are 3, Ger, Yasom, and Almona, then it goes to the Oni still. Okay? Ger, Yasom, Almona, 3. So any group of 3 goes to aniyim. He's darshaning the words Ger, Yosem, and Almona as being 3. Not in this pasuk. Tamai lebesil. What's logic besil? Because they have another pasuk that says Loni v'lager tazovosam, which means only 2. Loni v'lager. Amrai Mother said no. Shnei mikra echad dorsh. They both darshan the first pasuk. Lager Yosem and Almona yeah. Beis Shammai says yeah means to aniyim. So we know yeh to whom it belonged before, which is the Baal Bayis. So Beisil learns that 3 goes yeh, remains in spot. It goes to the Baal Bayis. Beis Shammai darshans yeh means goes to the aniyim. So they're both focusing on darshaning the same pasuk. Okay, new Mishnah, halacha hey. Homer sheish bos assignment. Homer, which is very large, a bundle which has 2 saw in it. V'shach when you forgot it. And or shikha tzagas b'shikha. Shnei omorim uvem sasayim. What if you had 2 bundles and together made a sasayim, which is a saw each? Gamliel mel Baal Bayis. Gamliel says same thing. Baal Bayis gets to keep it. Chacham says it goes to the anim. Amra Gamliel said fascinating logic. Says, well, you know why? Rabbi Gamliel says, you know why I'm right. So he says, Meirov omorim yofi kodesh bayis or yehura kodesh Baal Bayis. The more amorim you have, is it better for the Baal Bos or worse for the Baal Bos? It's better because if you drive it up to 3, then the Baal Bos gets to keep it, right? The more amorim you have, the more likely a chance that the Baal Bos gets to keep the stuff which he forgot. So they conceded that point. Amrulei, so he said to him, Yofi kocho, the more you have, the better it is for the Baal Bos. So he said to him, if that's the case, mine is manchu omer echad. Who else the time? If when it's 1 omer and there's 2 saw in it, and a shikha, it's not shikha. Shnei omerim, 2 omerim uvem sasayim, and you have a double saw in them. And odin shlo shikha is not a kavachomer, then it's not shikha. Amrulo, so they said to him, no. Im Amru Omer Echad Shuki Gadish. The logic is not based just on quantity; it's based on concept. A double Omer is like a Gadish. It's like a pile, and piles don't have a din of being forgotten. Only sheaves can be forgotten, not piles. But that's only true if you have a double Omer in and of itself. Not two Omerim which make up Sosayim. Then it's not like a pile, right? It's two Omer. So that's what they say. Omer lo imam ruba Omer echad shuki gadish. If they said it by one Omer, which is like a gadish, because it's so large. Tomer shnei Omerim sheker krigos. You're going to say by two Omerim, even if each one is a saw, it's still only like bundles. So there's no comparison. However, this is also derived. If you have a patch in the field which has two saw and has not yet been harvested, you forgot it, ain't no shicha, it's not shicha. If it doesn't have a sosayim because it's a bad year, it's a famine year. But in a regular year, it could make a sosayim. Even if it's so lousy now that it's growing barely beans. Beans here is a type of crop. It's a type of crop. It also indicates that it's not growing very much at all, right? You have only very little grain growing there, as if it was a paltry crop of beans, not actually a good crop of grain. Nonetheless, since in a good year can make sosayim, we look at it as if it now is actually barley, which means that we look at it as if it's growing its full amount, and therefore you don't have to, if you forgot it, you can go back and take it. Okay? It says the Gemara, Rav says, if you harvest your harvest out of the field, then you forget an omer in the field. It has to be an omer, what kind of omer is considered to be shikha? Once you could stick out your hand and grab it, hold it. But an omer which has sosayim, it's too large to grab. So it's too large to grab, it's not shikha. East Tanya, some the Tanoim learned the following, or some versions of the Brisa learned the following. For Shochach the Omer, where you have to forget an Omer in order for it to be Shikha below Godish and not a pile. So two saw, it's not just that you can't grab it, also it's considered to be a pile. Hey Chavita, what's the difference between the two reasons? Hey Chavita is like my nafkamina. What's the case? What's the case which is a distinction between the two opinions? What happens if you forgot a double omer and next to it you forgot another omer? But regular size omer. In tavdine omer, if you're going to say in tavdina omer, if you're going to say that the first one still has the din of omer, right, since it's such a large omer, so therefore it itself is exempt, but it doesn't help the other one next to it. Everybody would agree that the one next to it is shikha, because that one is, if the first one's an omer, so might have some exception, but the one next to it is not saved as a result. There is no havamina to say that. However, if you're going to say that this one is considered to be, it's so large, considered ready to be a pile, that's machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says if you forgot an omer next to a pile, next to a gadish, it's not shikha. It was one of the kulas of Beis Shammai. Shammai says if you forget an omer next to a landmark, such as a gadish, it's not shikha. So if you held that the double one is so large it's considered ready to be a pile, to be a gadish, then the omer next to it is saved as a result as well, according to Beis Shammai, albeit not according to Beis Hillel. Says the Gemara, shachach shnei amorim b'tzido. Or another case of nafkin will be, let's say you forgot this double-sized omer, and actually you forgot another two. In tavidnei omer, if you're going to say that the double-sized one is considered to be an omer, so we have machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Then we have machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, because now we have, here it's a kula, according to Beis Hillel, if you consider an omer. Because if you consider an omer, and it's next to the other two, so then you have three. According to Beis Hillel, is it shikha? No, right? Because there three remains to Ba'abos. According to Beis Shammai, is it shikha? Because Beis Shammai says in order to Ba'abos keep it, how many do you have to have? 4. So in this case, it's going to be Machuz Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai the other way. In Tavidne Gadish, if you're going to say, however, that the double Omer is considered to be a Gadish, so Eino Nidon Kishura, it's not considered to be like a row. In other words, a row would be where you had 3 Omarim in a row. We had this already several times. You had 3 Omarim in a row. So in that case, everybody agrees that it's not considered to be forgotten, right? But here it's going to depend. These 2 Omarim, which are next to the big one, which is like a Gadish, is really going to be a Machlokas Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai again. That according to Beis Shammai, it's going to be considered not to be Shikha, because these 2 are next to a Gadish. According to Beis Hillel, it is going to be Shikha. Hi, you have 3 in a row? No, it's not 3 in a row. It's not a Shura, because one of them is a Gadish and the other 2 are Omarim, right? So, because one of them is double size. So therefore, in this case, we would say, again, this would be a Malchukas Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and Beis Hillel would come out being Machmir and saying that they're all forgotten. The other 2 are forgotten. Beis Shammai would be Mekel and say it's not forgotten. Okay, says Rabbi Yonah says, Ki tiktor ketzircha basodeh v'shochachta omer basodeh. It says, when you're harvesting the field and you forget an omer in the sodeh, then a shikha. Omer sheish bo sasayim v'shokho, and omer which has sasayim, which has 2 saw, and you forgot it, ain't no shikha. It's not going to be shikha because it's not considered to be what? Right, it's considered to be too significant. I forgot how he wants to learn that explicitly from the pasuk. He says, this is going on the end of the Mishnah. Really, it's saying that. There's a linkage drawn between the cuts here and comma. It's really, you see, I just stopped in the middle of the sentence. That's the problem. Rabbi Yonah said, "Ki siktor ketzircha b'sada v'shachachta omer b'sada omer sheish b'sada sholcho eder shikha." That we know already. That's a given. That we know from Moralf. Comma sheyesh bo sheisosayim sholcho eder shikha as well. This is the chiddush here. That when you're kaitzer in the field. And you're shocheach, whatever by an omer is not considered to be shikha, also in the katzir is not considered to be shikha. So if an omer sheish bo sasayim is considered not to be shikha, so to a kama, a standing patch in the land which has 2 saw, is not considered to be shikha. You can go ahead and harvest it again afterwards. Says Mar Rabbi Yossi said concerning the end of our Mishnah, where it said that even if it's a bad year, and that patch is not actually producing a sa'asayim, since it could produce a sa'asayim in a good year, so therefore it's exempt from shikha. Says Mara Bilvad Shibolin, as long as it has stalks there. It shouldn't be beans. As we said, even if it's lousy like beans, but not that it is beans, right? If it is beans, so then just because it was great it could make 2 saw, it doesn't exempt it from being shikha now because it's beans. So it has to be grain, which could make 2 saw in that area, even though now it's so rotten that it's producing much less as if it was beans. Hoyudakos, how does this work, the end of the Mishnah? If they were small, or rather thin, Roina Sokila Arukos, we see them as if they're strong and long. Shadufos, if they're beaten by the sun, or blighted. Roina Sokila Mleos, we look at them as if they're full, and that's how the term is Shikhanat. Okay, next Mishnah, Lachavav. Kama matzeles es omer v'esakoma. If you have standing grain, which is a sasayim, and next to it is an omer, or another kama, another patch which is less than a sasayim, it's saved. V'omer, or vice versa, a sheave which you have not forgotten. Eino matzilos omer los kama does not save another omer nor another kama. Ezui kama shimatzelis omer. Where do we have a case where standing grain saves a sheaf? Kosher neshikha, that's true even if you don't have a sasayim. Even if it's not a sasayim of kama, but rather one stalk which is not forgotten. You forgot everything else, but there's one stalk which is not forgotten over here. and next to it is a big sheaf which is forgotten, that one stalk saves the sheaf next to it. The sheaf is not considered to be shikha. How you forgot it, but since it's next to a stalk which you didn't forget, that saves it. Okay? Says the Gemara, if you have a saw of grain which is already uprooted, which is not uprooted, and so too in a tree, hashum v'abtzalim, garlic and onion, even though they're similar, they're both sharp. Aim and starving, they don't join up in these cases to make a sow sign. Rabbi Yossi Omer, if there's another domain of the ani in the middle, there's no joining between the sosaim. If there's no domain of the ani in the middle, they do join together. We'll see that means in the Gemara. Omar Rabbi said, it says if you are harvesting your harvest in the field, and you forgot an omer in the field. Omer shesivosav katsir, an omer which is surrounded by cut grain is considered to be shikha. V'lo omer shesivosav kam, as opposed to omer surrounding which is standing grain. V'lama omer shesivosav v'lama. Why is this? Omer shesivosav omrein v'lo omer shesivosav kama. It says the Gemara, because we learn out an omer which is surrounded by omrim, not an omer which is svivosov, which is surrounded by standing grain. Omer shivosov omrim. Why is that true? Because an omer which is surrounded by omrim, masha tachtov sodeh, that which underneath it is considered to be a field. It's omer b'sadcha. We learned sadcha means ground which is clear. So therefore, if you have a bundle which is surrounded by other bundles, only that one in the middle is shikha, the other ones don't save it. The other ones don't save it because that is a kotzi, an omer in the sodeh. Why? Because everything around it is considered to be a sodeh. There's bundles all around it, but underneath the bundles is flat field. The bundles are incidental to the field. However, if it's surrounded by standing grain, that which underneath it is not called a sodeh. It's called stalks. Because there, the stalks, the standing grain around it is considered to be not incidental, but essentially part of the field itself. So it's a very interesting drush, a little bit difficult, and the Kavanaki has a different interpretation of how to read this Gemara, different gears as well, but the interpretation here is, how do I know that standing grain saves sheaves, but other sheaves do not save sheaves, unless I forget three together. But otherwise, surrounding sheaves do not save the sheaf in the middle, because it says, if you forget an omer and a sodeh, sodeh can be a sodeh which is full of sheaves as well. So the sheaves surrounding the forgotten sheaf do not save from being shikha. However, where the surrounding field is standing grain, so that's not considered to be sadcha, and in that case, that saves, the surrounding grain saves the sheaf in the middle which was forgotten. Okay? Again, as I said, the Gzeres Kosev is a bit iffy, this kind of derivation of the word sadcha, and how to learn it, but I don't make up the stuff, I just read it to you. Says the Gemara further. Tani, we learned. Chamas Chavero, a very interesting kula, according to Tanakama here. My standing grain, Matzel Shashlo, saves your forgotten sheaf. Shagoy, my neighbor's a goy, his standing grain, Matzel Shashlo, saves the Jews' grain. Shalchitim, standing grain of wheat, Matzel Shashorim, saves barley grain. All this is Divrei Rabbi. Chachomim, of course, argue. Chomrim eno matzelas ela shalo. It only saves your grain. Ve'eno matzelas amino. It only saves if it's the same type, not a different type. Tani we learn Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer kashem shakava matzelas es omer. Just like standing grain saves a sheaf, kacha omer matzelas akama. So too, a sheaf which is not forgotten saves kama, which is forgotten. The reverse of the case we had before. We said before, if even one stalk was not forgotten, it saves a sheaf which was forgotten. Right? Here it's the opposite. A sheaf which is not forgotten, according to Shimon Gamliel, saves a standing patch which of course is less than a Sa'im, because otherwise it would be safe on its own, which is not saved. Okay? So he learns that it's reflexive. So it says the Gemara is all part of this price. Or again, Umay Makoma. Vidinu, it's a logic. Umay Makoma Shiafa Bokachani. And it's amazing logic here which the Gemara gives. Kama, the Ani has greater authority to take. Standing grain, what does an Ani get from standing grain? How many? How many matanos? That's true, but for some reason the Mepharshim don't take into account here. He gets 3. You're right, he gets matzoni as well, but what does he get essentially? Lekar Shechon Peah, right. So from standing grain, look at this amazing Kavachomer Gamliel makes. Says the Gemara, says Shin Gamliel, who is it? Shin Gamliel? Yeah, Shin Gamliel. Says, Umayim Kama Shiafa B'Kachani. If standing grain where the Ani has more rights to get, V'Shachacha. If you forget it, Harei Matzeles, it saves. The Omer, which is next to it, Omer, a sheave, Shehura B'Kachani, from which the Ani can get less, because he can't get Peah from a sheave, right? He can't get Lekar from a sheave. What can he get from a sheave? Only Shikha. So Omer, which is Rura B'Kachani, where the Ani has less capacity to take from it, Eino Din Shiatz is not a Kavachomer that it saves the standing grain. It's an amazing Kavachomer. If standing grain where Ani's got more power, that saves an Omer. So Omer, where the Ani has less power, that certainly should save the Kama. You don't like it, do you?
It's not analogous. It's not taking that's something.
It's much more Yerushalmi dick, but you're right. It's Tanoim, so it should be in the Bavli too. You're right. I'm not it's comparing apples and oranges. It is, but his son Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says that to him. Amlo Rebbe said, Learn it the other way around. Kama, standing grain, where Nani gets a lot from it, he gets like Shechon Peah from it, nonetheless, Shachacha, when you forget it, Harei Matzeles, it can save. He changed the gear, so here, just a minute, let me make sure I get it right. That's right. He changed the gears like this. Listen to his girsa. Malakama shayafakach ani ba. Kama, the ani has more authority in it. True. But imatzelis la'omer. The point is, let's look at what it's saving. It saves an omer shekain hura kach ani bo. It saves an omer in which an ani has more. Ani has less authority. Yatzil Omer Shura Koch Ani Bo. Who says the opposite is true? Maybe the Omer, precisely because, although the Omer is Hura Koch Ani Bo, the Omer itself is less affiliated with the Ani, yet perhaps it won't save the Kama Sheyavik Koch Ani Bo, because the Kama has more power to be given to the Ani, has more power over. In other words, Rebbe comes along and he turns it over and he says, Adarabba, you're looking at the matzu, at the thing that saved your. And he's saying, well, if Kama can be matzu, which Ani has more authority over, certainly Omer can be matzu, where an Ani has less authority over. Let's look at the nitzol, the saved, right? The thing which is being saved. And a Kama might be able to save an Omer, because an Omer in and of itself is something to which an Ani has less affinity. But maybe vice versa, for an Omer to save a Kama, where Kama has much more affinity to an Ani, maybe in that case, it doesn't work. Maybe don't look at the Omer, which is the Savior, which is a stronger, is more distantly removed from the Ani. Rather look at that which you're trying to save, the Kama, and say this is not going to work because the Kama is something which is more that of the Anis. So again, one more time. Rabbi Shimon Meir looked at the thing which saves, the savior. He said, well, if Kama saves, which is the Ani has more power over, nonetheless it saves for the Baal Bus. Certainly Omer, where the Ani has less authority over, which inherently is more connected to the Baal Bus, that certainly should save. Rebbe said, let's look at the thing which is being saved. Maybe an Omer can be saved, because an Omer is inherently distanced from an Ani. But maybe Kama can never be saved, not even by another Omer, because it is much more that of the Ani. It's much more of the Ani's jurisdiction to begin with. So says the Gemara, Lamaise, says the Gemara, from both of them we can learn Matzilin Omer mi Omer, that an Omer could save an Omer. That's for sure, because an Omer is less ability to the Ani. So therefore, an Omer could save an Omer. That's for sure. However, according to both of them, Ein Matzilin Kama mi Kama. So they both hold you can't save Kama with Kama. Why? Because Kama is more affiliated to an Ani, so therefore you can't save Kama with Kama, because it's inherently that more than Anim. Now this is not like our Mishnah. The Kavanoki points out, our Mishnah said Kama is Matzil Kama and Kama is Matzil Amorim. Here he's saying, we said in our Mishnah, even one stalk of standing grain could save an Omer. But since Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's father were looking at the relative affinity of the commodity in question to the Ani, that changes the din from our Mishnah, which did not look at that at all. Our Mishnah just looked at whether it was forgotten or not forgotten. They're throwing the additional factors of how much it is relevant to the Ani already. That is something which our Mishnah never took into account. Okay? Says Gemara further. Haim shochach shichicha. It says that if you forgot the I forgot what this case is talking about. Where'd you forget here?
Two questions. Am I after Allah?
One second. Yeah, this is talking about the Mishnah said when you have Kama, what Kama is Matzilus Omer? When is Kama save the Omer? Whenever you didn't forget the Kama. So what happens if later on you forgot the Kama? You had Kama standing, it saved an Omer next to it. Then you forgot the Kama afterwards. What? The Kama saved the Omer, then you forgot. No. Oh, you took the Omer, right. And then you forgot the Kama. So it sounds like a shikha, right? Afterwards, shachacha. Right? Says more, no, could be it's not. Could be that's only tipater, but shachacha is a Kama tchila. It could be once the Omer is remembered. The Omer the Kama saved the Omer, then the Omer saves the Kama.
Even though it's not in the field.
Even though it's not in the field anymore. But it could be the only time the Kama could become shikha is if you forgot the Kama before you came and took the Omer. In other words, that's what Gemara is saying. Again, if the Kama saves the Omer, then the Omer saves the Kama. Right? And that's where that, even if you got how the Kama, the fact that there was at the time you took the Omer, you knew that the Kama was there, that's sufficient to save it. However, if the Kama saved the Omer, and before you took the Omer, you forgot the Kama again, that's considered to be true shikha. Because that means that the time you took the Omer, you had forgotten the comma. In that case, the comma becomes forgotten. Not again, the first time. So again, let's go through it one more time. You forgot the comma. Then you came to get the Omer. I'm sorry. You forgot the Omer. The comma saved it. Then when you take the Omer, at that time you remember the comma, but then you forgot the comma. Subsequently, not again, subsequently. In that case, the Omer saved the comma. Because at the time you got the Omer, you knew the comma was there, so it was saved. However, it says the Yerushalmi, if at the time you collected the Omer, you had already forgotten the comma at that point, so then the Omer doesn't save it, and that comma is lost to you. Okay? See that inside again? It says if you forgot, it's forgotten. It says that's only true, but sheshachach is the comma tchila, where you forgot the comma before you collected the Omer, which is adjacent to it. Okay. Says the Yerushalmi further. It says that it said in the Mishnah that it's not mitzaref. It doesn't join together. Sounds like the Baal Bayis. Sounds like if you have two saws and two amorim, which are already cut down, they are mitzaref, and it goes to the Baal Bayis. That's like Rabbi Gamliel, who in the previous Mishnah said that the double amount does not have to mean one Omer, even the two Omerim together, that already saves. Okay, that's like Rabbi Gamliel. Ask more about the Lamaisa, V'tatzil Akura She'ein Akura. Says the Gemara, let that which is uprooted already, the Omer, save the comma which is not yet uprooted. Right, where you have two together. We said Akura v'shein Akura is not mitzaref. Only Akura and Akura. Why not? Let the Eina Akura save the Eina Akura. Let stuff which is uprooted, that Omer, save the comma. Hadamara, so says the Gemara, this teaches us that which you said before. The comma, which could have saved the Omer, but then was forgotten at the time you collected the Omer, it's forgotten forever. In other words, in this case, in the only way in which the Omer could save the comma is at the time of you collect the Omer, you realize you still are aware of the comma. But if by the time you collected the Omer, you're no longer aware of the comma, that comma is lost forever. Tipater. Now, this case is talking about it's continuation. Rabbi Yonah is rejecting the premise. Says, well, it could be really, and Omer does save the comma. Here, maybe the reason why the Omer doesn't save the comma is because it's talking about Tipater b'kaitzer shura amer, that you cut a row and you take the Omer away before you go to the next shura. In other words, here, the Omer was over here. There's commas over here in the next row. This Omer cannot save this comma. It could be that an Omer can save a comma if they're in the same row. And even if you forgot the comma by the time you take the Omer, since the Omer was next to it, you remember the Omer, maybe it saves the comma. Here the Omer doesn't save the comma because the Omer's in the next row from the comma. So by the time as you finished this row, you took the Omer away into your house. So by the time you got to the next shura, to the next row, there's already no Omer to save that comma which is in the next row. Says the Gemara, again, because the shura u'ma'amer, as you harvest each row, you gather it up out of there, and therefore you already forgot the comma ad shelo shokach es omer until. I don't know how to read this line. me make sure I got this right. Okay, I made a boo-boo. Let's go back in line. At least according to the Kavanaki I did. Says Gemara. No, it's okay. He changes one word here. He changes one word. The first word on the page, I know you have a different pagination, but the first word on our page on Lamed Alf was v'tatzil. See that? He changed it to v'titzol. V'titzol, he reads it, v'titzol akura she'ein akura. Let the akura be saved. Why the ein akura? Right? The omer should be saved because of the kama. This is talking about a case where you have saw akura, saw shein akura, right? You have one saw which is uprooted, and one which is already harvested, and one which is not yet already harvested. So he's asking, the question here which the Yerushalmi is asking is, let the one which is already harvested, let the akura be saved because of the shein akura of the standing grain. I learned the other. I read it v'tatzil. Let that which is the way it's written in our Gemara, which means let the one which is already akur, the omer, save the kama. He changed the girsa because of the same reason, because of that which I just got stuck. He's changed the v'titzo akura, let that which is already harvested be sold by she'ein akura, by that which is not already harvested. Hada amara, so the chor from here we see dava shuroi latzil b'shacha, something which is suitable to save, which is the kama, right, which could have saved the omer at the time. Now it's too late when you forget both of them, so then neither of them can be retrieved, neither the omer nor the kama, which goes against everything we learned till now. Again, here the question is, let the kama save the omer, and the Gemara is saying, by virtue of the fact that the kama, right, you have one saw of kama, one saw of omer. Let the kama save the omer. Since the kama doesn't save the omer, it must be that even though you forgot the kama after the omer, when you forgot it forever, and there's no salvation anymore, which is difficult because we said before it should be considered saved already. It shouldn't be a problem afterwards. That's the Gemara's answer. The Gemara's answer is, it says Gemara tipater bekoitzer shuram amer. It's talking about where you cut a row and made it into sheaves and bundled it off. V'kvar shochach es hakama, and you already forgot the kama ad shelo shochach es omer, before you forgot the omer. In other words, what happened is like this: you cut a row, right? You cut a row, and then let me just make sure I'm going to translate this correctly now. It's not a teretz. Right, no, it's a kasha. Which is a problem. We're deriving that even though the kama should have saved the omer, nonetheless, subsequently both of them become shikha, which is a problem. That should not be the case. So that's why Rabbi Yonah comes along and says this teretz, that this is only talking about a case where you forgot the kama prior to forgetting the omer. How do you have such a case? Tipater b'koitzer shura, where you harvest the row. Okay, I got it. Okay. What happens is like this. You have two rows right there. So here what happens is, If you harvested this row, made it an omer, and left this row as kama at that time, right? The row next to it, then this kama saves this omer. The kama saves the omer. There's no way it can be shikha at this point, because this kama, which is not yet shikha, saves this. We're talking about where you cut a row, and then cut the next row, and then go back and make this an omer. By the time this is omer, this is cut and already forgotten. So this cannot save this omer. You see what happens? You're kotzer shura, and then kotzer another shura, and then you're ma'amer this shura. So therefore, this one cannot save that one. That's why in this case we say that lamaisa, theoretically, the kama should always save the omer next to it. But that's only if this was an omer at the time this was a kama. But if this was bakat, and then this was cut next to it, and then this was made an omer afterwards, there's no way this can save. That's what he's answering here. Okay? So I'm not sure. It needs a somewhat of a steam shovel to fit that into the words exactly. But that's the concept. You're cutting your field, the whole field. You're kotzer shura ma'amer. You're cutting your line, your row, and doing omer. However, kfar sholas a kama at shlo sholas omer. You already forgot the kama next to it before you forgot this omer over here. Now I see it. Lemais, I don't have to say it. It's not as difficult as I translated. It's really much more balabatish. You had this stat. You had this over here, which is this is an omer. It's true, but you forgot this comma before you made this an omer. In other words, the Yerushalmi, with all the convolutions of the language, there's one simple lesson the Yerushalmi teaches us as the bottom line. If when this is an omer, this is a comma, and it's not forgotten, this comma saves this omer forever. The only time this comma does not save this omer is if by the time this became an omer, this comma is already forgotten. Regardless of whether it was cut or not, when this comma is forgotten, it doesn't save this omer anymore. Well, as long as this comma was not forgotten, it does save the omer. Okay? That's all. That's really the bottom line of the Yerushalmi. Says the Gemara, what's the halacha? Ad shetavo mamish, afilu nirei slavi. Now let's talk about the last case in the Mishnah. The last case in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi said, in bas rishus ani b'emtza, if there was an area which the ani got in the middle of two sa'ah, so then they're not mitzdarif. So it sounds like Pashup Shad is that here's a saw, here's another saw, and in the middle there's an area for which an ani already took leket. So that separates those two. They're not considered being sayim together, and they're shikha. Says Yerushalmi, is it talking about takat shetava mamish, that an ani literally came and took leket from here, or filo nirei slavi, even if an ani could have gotten leket from the middle already? What's the case? So it says, say the Mefarshim, even at wherever there's anything in the middle which is different than these two, it's considered as if the ani took leket already. He didn't, but that by definition means it's separate in terms of its leket, even if it's just a separate crop. And then these saim are not going to join together. So nishmina min adah, and that's learned out from the following brisa where it says, if this is grain and this is grain and there's a karam in the middle, right? So even though you have saim of grain on each side, the karam in the middle, the karam lo lasaru, isn't it just? It's hard to translate that line as well. Literally, lo lasar means isn't it in the place, meaning that's all the difference between the two. The karam wasn't necessarily harvested yet. There isn't necessarily any distinction vis-a-vis leket in that karam in the middle. Yet nonetheless it has different parameters vis-a-vis leket, hadamara, that teaches us afilu nirei slavi, even if the ani has not yet gone through the middle between the two saws, they are considered to be separate. What?
The farmer's not going to designate the central area for leket.
How can you not designate it for leket?
He's going to designate.
No, not pay a leket. Leket is where it falls from his hand, not Peah. Okay. Boy, bruising and battering evening. I knew it was going to be this way, but I didn't realize it'd be this stuff. Oh, Tvua Shenitna L'Sodeh. Let's try to finish the parak. Grain, which you're going to give to animal fodder, or even worse, you're just going to use it to bale hay. It's such a dismal crop; it's not worth it for the grain value in and of itself. The same thing is true in general about bundles of garlic. And bundles of garlic and onions, there's no shikha on them. It has to be an omer. These are not omers. These are either being used for different purposes, or they're not considered to be omer because they're not grain. Called winning bar, it's anything buried in the ground. These are all crops which grow on the ground. There is no shikha. Say they do have shikha. Says Rabbi Yehuda said, "Lo sof davar nitna." Not just if it's if it's been given over to be used for bundles or for animal fodder. Feel no, I'm not seeing that. Even if eventually it's going to be used for that purpose, right now it has no leket or right now it has no shikha in it, because it's not considered to be a crop for human consumption. So we learn concerning the end of our Mishnah, which says stuff which is buried, there is not considered to be any issue. There's a machlokus whether in that case there's considered to be any shikha or not. Or not. So you know what we learned over there. If I put fire, it's very very interesting halacha. I set fire to your crop, and in your crop you hid expensive stuff, gold vessels, paintings. Do I have to pay you for that? So it's machlokas. Says the Gemara, there was expensive stuff hidden in the Gadish. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mishalim Komashem Tocho, I have to pay the entire value, even that which is buried inside. Chachamim say, I'll have to pay you for the grain value, not for the paintings or whatever else is in there. Says Gemara, whoa. Shita say to Rabbi Yehuda. There's a contradiction of Rabbi Yehuda's Shita. Taman there, I'm sorry. Here Taman is there in Baba Kam it says the rabbis told me you pay for the buried kalim. You have to pay the guy for the stuff which he hid in the grain. But here, here it says Taman is excluded from shikha. So which one is it? Is Talmud considered to be chayav because we recognize it as being significant, or is Talmud considered to be potter from shikha because it's insignificant? Is it significant or not? It's a good kasha. Says the Gemara, it's no kasha. The Talmud there it says v'nechel agadish kama. It says the fire consumes the pile of the standing grain. Since it talks about standing grain, any of their shagish b'chal I not know that includes the pile of grain. Matam lo gadish. Why does it say gadish as well? The rabbis to teach us that to include that which is buried. That if you're a fire, set fire to that which is Talmud, I have to pay for that separately. However, here it says what's chai v'shicha sodcha, your field, the goli, that which is revealed. Prat l'Talmud as opposed to Talmud that's not Chaim Shikha. What about Mechafa Shita side Rabbanan? Rabbanan Shita is also reversed. Talmud Inu Namrim Prat l'Talmud. There Rabbanan say it excludes Talmud. Right there Rabbanan say don't pay for the Talmud, just pay for the grain. The Koinu Namrim L'Rabbis Talmud here they say Talmud is included in Leka Shikha in Shikha. Says Mar Talmud there it says O HaKama O HaSadeh. It says it burns either the fire burns either the kama or the soda. My soda begoli, just like soda is that which is revealed. I've called over shagoli, so to anything which was revealed. as opposed to Talmud. Talmud is not revealed. There you don't have to pay. But here it says, Sodcha Begalui Prat L'Talmud. It says Sodcha, which is revealed, which excludes Talmud. Then it says Kitzircha Prat Begalui, which is also revealed, Prat L'Talmud, which excludes Talmud. Have a miut achar miut. So it's a double exclusion. If you have a double exclusion, that means it's an inclusion, and that means Talmud is chayav in shikha. Okay? Says the Gemara, it says the Mishnah further, very interesting Mishnah. Hakoyter b'layla. I'm an idiot, but I'm harvesting at night. So of course I'm going to forget stuff. Is that shikha? Take a guess. No. Wrong. Right, because it's not shikha is where it was revealed or apparent, and you missed it. But there it's not revealed. So too, if somebody is bundling at night, same idea. Oh, wait a minute, I was wrong. You guys are right. Oh boy. Sorry, I apologize. You guys are right. Whoops. Yeah. Wait. Sorry about that. Okay. Hakotzra is somebody who harvests at night, uma'amer or bundles at night. Fasum or a blind person, yesh lo shikha. They all are shikha, even a blind person. If, however, he intended to take only the coarse granules right now, and of course he forgot some thin granules, thin stalks, and he might have forgotten the thick stalks as well, but he intended to make 2 passes, right? He intended to come back, so therefore, ein lo shikha, no shikha. Imamar, if a person, however, said explicitly, I'm harvesting on the condition that which I forget, I'll come back and take later on. Yesh lo shikha, there is shikha. The Gemara will explain why in the Gemara. Kini mastis, and this is a way to read our Mishnah. Doesn't work. It's not masamash kosa batar. The Gemara is going to tell us that. Kini mastis, this is a way to read our Mishnah. Hakoyter b'laylo, somebody who's harvesting at night. V'amar b'laylo, somebody who bundles at night. The summa bein b'yom bein b'laylo, and a blind person counting both at day and at night. It's all shikha. Rabbi and Rabbi said, Lo sof davar ka'asin. It's not just when his original intent was to collect the thick ones. But even his original intent was to collect the thin ones. That since he can tell which are the gasin and leaves them and comes back for them. So too the. So I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. Just a second. Yeah, I'm right. Okay, I'm right. So it says again, los of davar gasin. It's not just true where your first passes for the thick ones. Even where your first passes the thin ones. The chimeacha shadarkali bochin begasin. Since it's going to come back to find the thick ones, I feel dakin. Even the thin ones he forgot. Ain't shikha, not shikha. If he said, I'm harvesting on the condition that which I forget, I'm going to come back and take afterwards. Yesh lo shikha, doesn't work. There is shikha. Shehisla mashkos b'torah. He made an explicit condition against that which it says in the Torah. V'chol master mashkos b'torah. That anybody makes a condition against that which it says explicitly in Torah, it's no batel. The tonight doesn't work, even though it's a tonight shebemomon. Doesn't work because that's only has to do with kinyonim. Not when you're going to cancel an entire mitzvah as a result, which is the mitzvah of shikha. Okay? Let's just go a little bit further, get home at base. Any zayis which has a name in the field. Harold. Right? Your olive tree has a name. So in that case, afilu k'zayis and tofa, even if it's a generic name like the juicy zayis. The tofa means the one which drips oil. right? So it's an adjective as opposed to a noun, right? It's not called Harold. It's called the drippy one, right? B'shaito, it's at the time when it drips. B'shakho, and you forget it, ain't a shikha. Because since it's so chashuv, it's got a nickname, it's not shikha.
It's like the base of sign.
Right. Same idea as the base of the sign. When is it true? B'shmo, when it's recognizable by its name, uv'maisa, or by its special productivity, uv'koma, or it has a special place. Bishmo, what's a name? Shoshavchani, it's called the one which spills oil, or Bishani, the one which is embarrassing because it produces so little oil. B'maisa, it has a special singularity in its deeds. Shuosa arbe, produces a lot. B'makom, a special singularity in its place. Shoyim b'tzad a gas, it's standing next to the press, or b'tzad a pirtz, or next to an opening in the fence. So all those are not shikha. V'shar kol hazeh, all other alfshi, shnai forget 2 shikha, shlosha 3 ain't a shikha. Rabbi Yossi and Shulazei says there is no shikha by olives. Now why is that? It says more Omer Rabbi Law says Ksiv, it says v'shochachto omer b'sadeh, you forget an omer in the field. Omer shata shochachol li'olah, has been omer which you will always forget. Yotazeh, this excludes an olive tree which has a special name, shad sochel which you remember afterwards, because it's not generic. It has special distinguishing characteristics. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked, Hoya Mesuyim B'daito. We know from our Mishnah that if you had a special intent for it, Kimisha Mesuyim, that's considered to be Mesuyim. Doesn't necessarily have a name. As long as it sticks out of your mind, that's sufficient. However, this is my kasha. What if it, in and of itself, had no significance? But it was standing next to a palm tree, and the palm tree is significant. Hadeko Mesaimo, does the deko Mesaimo or not? Zev is what about if both are in the toifa, not one by itself, but you call both trees together, all these are in the toifas. So is that Messiah, the toifa area? Zeh Messiah Mezev, Zeh Messiah Mezeh. Does it make the whole thing Muslim or not? Hayakosle in toifa, his entire field, they're all drippy olives. Does that make the entire field Muslim or not? Says Nishmini Minadol. Let's hear from the following case. Rabbi Yossi, it says that Rabbi Yossi said, Ain't shichol azayis. Now we are in a Mishnah. V'am Rabbi Shimon Yochid said a fascinating thing, which the Gemara is going to argue on. We'll see tomorrow. Lama Rabbi Yossi el. When was this true? Only at years ago. Shelo hayu zaysim mitzuyim. There weren't a lot of olives in Eretz Yisrael. So since there weren't a lot of olive trees, everyone was chashuv. So there was no shikha by zaysim. What? No one would ever forget them. Why is that? Because our dryness came, Hadrian, and he destroyed Eretz Yisrael. But now that olives are prevalent, they have shikha again. So we see you can have many olive trees. According to Rabbi Yossi, at his time, every single olive tree in the land of Israel was considered to be kosher. So therefore, the toifa doesn't necessarily apply just to one. It can apply to multiple olive trees. We'll stop here for this evening.